Okay, and Ross, I am going to mute myself and then in 3 seconds, start admitting attendees.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. If you can, please take our poll. Question 2, transportation coordinator. That might not be an official title, but sometimes you're the person helping out with transportation, so you can say yes. Okay, we're about to get started. If you haven't yet taken our poll, there's a little scroll down to the very bottom of your screen. You should see an icon. It's about middle of the screen, and it says polls. So if you take the poll, we'd sure appreciate it because we're going to use your information during this webinar. All right, I think we can get started. Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about commute benefits for every budget, for every employer. And yes, this webinar is being recorded, and it's going to be shared at the Get There Oregon website, which will show at the end of the presentation. And this presentation is being brought to you by Metro, Oregon Department of Transportation, and funding from the Federal Transit Administration. So I'm Adriana Britton. I work with TriMet. I'm a transportation options coordinator, which means I get to work with employers and help employees get to the work site. A little bit about our format for today. We have closed captions available. If you're seeing a flashing black box in the upper right of your screen, we're having a little technical issue with the live streaming, so I apologize for that. We also have Spanish translation available. You can click on language interpretation in the menu at the bottom of your screen and then select Spanish. And we have somebody wonderful to help you out with that. If you have any questions, instead of using the chat, put them in the Q&A, please. And we're going to have folks monitor your questions, and we'll make time for our panelists to respond to your questions. So next, we're going to meet our panelists today. It's my great pleasure to introduce Aurora Sanquilli, the Director of Finance with Ace Hotel here in Portland, Oregon.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. And next, also my great pleasure is to introduce Kat Souter, Employment Program Manager with Relay Resources.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today speaking with you.
Thank you. And to Tamio Kennedy, Employee Resource Specialist, also from Relay Resources.
Hello, hello, hello. My name is Jay Tamio. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us. And we're going to show our poll results. It looks like we have several people who have a transportation benefit program at their work site. And we'll talk a little bit about what transportation benefits look like because it can vary from employer to employer. And many people who are taking the role of transportation coordinator, whether it's a formal title or not, and many people who don't. So we'll give you, we'll have lots of opportunities to discuss ideas to help out with that role or to reduce the burden of transportation. Okay. I'm going to close the poll. We're going to talk about commute benefits. We have some longstanding trends. Our Census Bureau has been capturing over the years the increasing length of commute time that people are spending in their cars. It continues to grow, it seems like, a minute or two every year. So about 30% of Americans have changed or left a job because of their commute length. And I see the poll again, so I'm going to close it. And the commutes are getting longer, and part of that is due to lack of affordable housing closer to the job centers. And here in our area, we do have an urban growth boundary, but we have been using those areas in the outer rings and providing new housing in those areas. But in some cases, that means a longer commute for folks. Next, please. So commute benefits. So prior to this 2-year period of pandemic season, we were seeing a lot of trips being made in a car, also on transit. Buses were full. We were adding bike lanes. The good thing is that there's been a lot more bike and pedestrian infrastructure that's been put into place while some of us have been at home, working from home. But of all those people who were able to remote work, about 50% of those are starting to return to the office. Some started opening their offices last month, and we're seeing more and more employers opening their offices, which is great. But we want to know, well, how will people commute? And there is some discussion in the business community about whether all those people are going to jump in their cars and what that could look like for moving goods around and moving people. So once people are ready to start coming back into work, employers actually have a great opportunity to help get information into the hands of their employees. Next, please. Commute benefits. They can be financial and they can also be non-financial incentives. Non-financial can either be information or some other things that we can talk about. Employers generally provide financial and non-financial incentives to help employees just make that little bit of a nudge of not always having to jump in their car. And the thing is that a lot of employers hear from their employees, they don't all want to be sitting behind a steering wheel. So people may want to commute by riding bus or ride sharing, such as carpooling or van pooling, or riding their bike to work. Next, please. There are a lot of non-financial commute benefits, and I've had many employers think of all kinds of great ideas for helping employees make an easy choice to either carpool or van pool or find other ways to get to work without always having to choose a car, or if they don't have a car available every day, they can choose some other way to get to work. Showers and lockers are a really great benefit for employers to offer. Also, they help reduce some of those trips that people might make during the daytime. So if you don't have to drive to a gym and then come back, you can run at work or you can walk at work. Bike parking is a really helpful thing, especially if you can provide a secure bike parking or something that's under a shelter or under an eave. Bike fleets here in the Portland metro region, during this pandemic season, the bike share actually got expanded, and now there are e-bikes, which are fabulous for hills. Designated carpool parking spots are a really nice way to cue people into just thinking, oh, when they're walking into the building, They can see, oh, a carpool. Maybe I can find somebody to carpool with. And here in the state of Oregon, we have a great tool for helping people to do that, find a carpool buddy. Next, please. Financial benefits. A lot of financial benefits are things like providing a transit subsidy. A transit subsidy can be a partial or full subsidy toward a transit pass. Here also in the Portland metro region, TriMet offers a reduced fare program that's income-based, and also youth passes and passes for those 65 and older honored citizens. There are also pre-tax deductions for employers that may not have a subsidy available to offer to their employees. They can still offer a pre-tax payroll deduction through their payroll or benefits provider, and that helps employees use their pre-tax dollars to pay for their transit fares. And there are also all kinds of memberships like bike shares and e-scooters, maybe a Lyft ride for getting home if you carpooled in but you need to get home a different way. So those are some of the financial benefits that employers can offer. Next, please. So next, we're going to talk to our fabulous panelists, and I will start with Aurora today. Tell us a little bit about the Ace Hotel, your location, about the size, and what your employees' work schedules currently look like.
Hi, thank you so much. Ace Hotel Portland is in downtown in the Pearl District, and we currently have about 25 employees. Because we're a hotel, our shifts are going 24/7. We have staff working around the clock, 365. That can make things a little bit complex when it comes to commuting for our staff, particularly because parking in downtown and in the Pearl District is difficult to access and tends to be rather expensive. So a lot of our employees have opted into our financial benefit, where we subsidize 50% of their Hop Card monthly passes. TriMet has this amazing Hop Card program where an employer can set up an account and can give our employees Hop Cards that we are then invoiced for on a monthly basis when we reload them. And so we pay 50% for each one, and then they pay the other 50% through a payroll deduction.
Thank you. And next I'm going to pose the same question to Kat. Kat, tell us a little bit about Relay Resources, the types of services that Relay Resources provides, your main location, and about the size of your organization and work schedules.
Wonderful. Thanks, Adriana. So Relay Resources, we are a nonprofit, and our primary main campus location is on Airport Way and 148th Avenue. So we're about 6 miles away from the Portland International Airport. Although we have a variety of sites where our employees provide our services all throughout Portland, into Hillsborough, into Vancouver, some into Seattle and Eastern Oregon. So you can see the transportation is something that's important to us. In terms of our size of our employee population, we currently have 705 employees in total, including Jay and I. So we're pretty large on the nonprofit scale size. In terms of what we do and the services that we provide, I'm responsible personally for our employment division. So anybody that's looking to work in any of our social enterprises, I manage a team that helps people find meaningful work, primarily focusing on our disabled community and how we can support them in their needs and in their employment space. Relay also does offer affordable housing as well, and many of our housing individuals also have transportation needs. In terms of our current level of reopening, I'll say really, we never closed. We have many folks that are on the front lines, keeping everyone safe during the pandemic in our janitorial department. You'll see many of our folks down at PDX performing services there, keeping the airport clean. But then in other spaces, some of our buildings may have closed or be reopening. So we're phasing that in as needed. Currently, our main campus is still closed to the public, but we're working on our reopening plan here in the near future.
Thank you, Kat. And Jatamio, can you tell us a little bit about the employee work schedules across these 700 people?
Yeah, so as Kat mentioned, we're spread out kind of all over the place, and we do a lot of services for different buildings that have, various levels of opening and closing. And, we have our employees work, I would say all of our employees throughout the 700 work some sort of 24 hours. So there's some employees work days, some employees work evenings, some employees work overnight shifts. And that's kind of spread across 700, employees, 700 plus employees. So as Aurora had mentioned, you can imagine transportation, particularly during the evening, can be kind of challenging for folks. And so the transportation benefits that we offer here at Relay are really, really beneficial to those individuals. And we also, really like getting into creative solutions. And so, if transportation isn't available during a certain time period, what are some other alternative ways we can get them to A to B safely? So that's part of my job here at Relay Resources.
Fabulous. And Aurora, before we go to the next slide, I want to check in with you about your current level of reopening at the Ace Hotel. There was a period where hotels and restaurants were all closed, but when did that change? And about where are you with reopening?
So at this point, where we landed with Ace Hotel is that we had to close in September of 2020. We partially reopened in July of 2021 with about half staff and half of our rooms open. We decided to take that opportunity to do a major renovation on the building and on our rooms. It just seemed like a good time to do that. So we started bringing people back in July of 2021. At this point now, we are almost fully staffed and we have almost all of our rooms fully available. We're just maybe 5 or 6 more rooms that we're still working on renovations for. And I would say that, 2021 was kind of rocky. And the first quarter of 2022, we were still at a lower capacity than we really wanted to be, but in alignment with the industry and the market in Portland for hotels. However, in March, things started really turning around. And now in April and May, we're starting to see a lot more travel, a lot more people coming into Portland again. And our occupancy has been much higher than we had expected. So we're looking to add staff, and having these transportation benefits is a huge help while we're recruiting, because it's a very difficult market to be recruiting new employees right now. So having those added benefits is good. And I'm looking forward to learning more about the resources available outside of TriMet through the Get There Oregon plan.
Thank you. Yes, and with the parade season coming up next month, hopefully your hotel will fill right up. So we'll go to the next topic. This is where we get to talk a little bit more about your take on transportation and scheduling incentives. Aurora, so I will start with you again. Did you have transportation or scheduling incentives in place before the pandemic?
My understanding is that Ace Hotel has had the transportation benefits through TriMet previously, before I came and started here in 2021. And then, of course, while they were closed, that wasn't in practice. But when I started and we reopened, it became something that I was really passionate about, particularly in providing that additional financial benefit for employees and making us a more attractive employer in the recruiting market. And now I'm looking at talking with the ownership team here about increasing our subsidy so that we can have an even more impactful benefit to our employees going forward. I think that there are ways that we can improve even more by getting more information to our employees about other options like the carpooling and van pooling services and the e-bikes.
Yes, getthereoregon.org has it's a free tool. It's available in Oregon. It's got a counterpart also in Washington, so people can put in sort of a request for a ride, and it can be open to anybody, or an employer can set up their own network, and you can do it by shift or set it up the way you want to. So next I'm going to talk to Kat a little bit about what types of incentives Relay Resources has offered over the years. Has that changed, or did you have the same incentive before the pandemic? And also I want to talk about scheduling. Like, is that anything that you're able to do in terms of offering flexibility?
Yeah, so in terms of incentives in place before the pandemic, we definitely had incentives put in place prior to the pandemic. Jay runs our TriMet program here at Relay and has been really instrumental in making sure our employees have access to that. So thanks, Jay. In terms of scheduling, you know, sometimes we're bound to customer needs, and sometimes that scheduling and transportation schedules don't always line up. So we try our best to meet and accommodate our employees where we can and how we can to ensure that they're able to get to work safely and strategically. I will also say that prior to my involvement here at Relay Resources, we had advocated to have a bus stop placed here on our campus. So we're really proud that Bus 87 comes and picks up our employees here on campus and gets them home safely after their shifts. So that's been something that's been really awesome. In terms of attracting and engaging employees or candidates out in the workspace, that's been difficult for so many people right now. And one of the things that we do that may be different is during our application process, we ask, how do you get to work? Do you drive? Do you take public transportation? What does that look like for you? So for folks that may, you know, public transportation may be their only option or their best suited option, we want to make sure to get them set up with an employment location that is best served by their need. So that's where my team comes into play, is reviewing that and helping them find those best selections based off of what their needs are. And then in terms of, you know, during our onboarding process, that's where Jay comes in, and he really works with those folks in getting them signed up.
Jay, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what that looks like at the beginning, when employee, or before, I guess at the time when you're hiring the person, are you involved in that discussion early on, or when does that come into play for you?
Yeah, so I'm actually the lucky human that gets to onboard certain sections of our employees. And so during that time, or during that onboarding day, I really open myself up to, you know, sign those folks up, explain a little bit about the program. And what I mean by the program is, here at Relay Resources, we are actually able to give all of our employees a heavily discounted annual hop card. I think about a little under $400 compared to the $1,000 I think it is through TriMet currently. And so it's really about reviewing that plan, reviewing, you know, are they an honored citizen, which we can also help load their hop cards? Are we, you know, are they not interested in TriMet at all? Or are they more interested in C-Tran? Things like that. And so it's my job then to kind of find where's their location, where are they currently staying, and then, you know, how to make that route from A to B. Whether that involves a variation of transportation, you know, benefits, whether it be a bike or so on and so forth. You know, I can help individuals get a discounted bike or fix their bike for really low cost through partner organizations. So I really try to get creative to make sure that they get to where they need to be safely. Yeah, and advocate for them, you know, when it comes to transportation benefits across the board as well. So.
Really great. That is something helpful that an employer can do at the very earliest of the interview process is just to find out, well, what kind of transportation do you have? Will you want some information? And if you don't have any, if you're new to the area, this is our transit agency. Here's the website that's free, offered by our Oregon Department of Transportation, getthereoregon.org. And so that I think is really helpful to say. Next, I'll take it over to Aurora and talk a little bit more about those monetary incentives that you offer, plus anything else that you might be offering employees or that you might be doing through your hiring process to encourage using transportation or addressing those issues. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you managed to restart your transportation incentive? And you did mention a little bit about you're looking to expand it.
Hi, yes. One of the things that was really helpful is when we reopened and I came on as the director of finance just at the time of reopening, about a week beforehand, I was able to look at some historical information to find out that we had that kind of plan with TriMet, reached out to a representative at TriMet and introduced myself, and they very quickly reactivated our account, very quickly got me access to everything that we needed. We were able to set up new cards for new employees immediately. We include our transportation benefits information in our recruiting process, in the job ads that we post, in the interview process. We let people know that it's one of the many benefits that we offer. And we do have a conversation with them about how they get here, whether or not that is something that they want to take advantage of, or if they are, living in the neighborhood, or if they're taking a bike. Something that we do have bike parking. We also have showers available. We're a hotel, and we have an inside, so we have outdoor bike parking where people can lock their bike up, but we also have indoor bike parking. If someone doesn't feel that their bike is secure outside, they can bring it in. And then we have a couple of people who are using their own personal electric scooters. So we're looking at potentially pairing with either the e-bike or the e-scooter for a mobility membership for our employees, if there's enough interest in that. Let's see, what else have we tried and what are we looking at doing? Let me think for a moment. Oh, we also have, this is just kind of an internal thing, and I guess this would fall under the non-financial incentives. Several of us are Fitbit buddies, and so we encourage our employees to not only take transit, but to increase their walking and their steps. And so we kind of have like a little internal employee competition on our daily steps. That helps me particularly keep me motivated to continue riding the bus, continue getting off, a stop further away so that I get more steps in. And I think sometimes looking at ways that you can make it not only financially incentive, but fun and competitive a little bit among your staff can just add a little bit more excitement about it.
You're right. Competition is a really good way to build camaraderie around things like biking and walking to work. And there is a bike commute challenge. It has a new name, and it also moved to the fall. But we also have through getthereoregon.org, there is a commute challenge that we'll be having in October, just so people know about that.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
I'll take it back to, yeah, it's great. I think that the next question we had a little bit about for Relay Resources. If you can tell us a little bit more about whether these transportation incentives, what kind of feedback do you hear from employees who join, or if that was something that helped them make that decision to join your organization? Chitamio.
Yeah, so I think this is very true for Relay. We have a lot of individuals that are either coming straight from homelessness or coming, never worked a job maybe before. Some of them are coming right out of school. And so it's my sole purpose to really, and I think Relay's purpose, and this speaks to Kat's team, is all the way from applying up until they are set at their permanent site, knowing that we are an agency that is contracted at different, venues across the Portland area. when they, we guiding them through that process in total, everything from once you apply on our website all the way through your interview, through onboarding, through your permanent site. We really need to make sure that this job is going to be beneficial for you. And on top of that, that you have every availability to get to your job. Here in Portland, we're really blessed to have such a thorough transportation system. I mean, beyond me in the Pacific Northwest. And so I think that can also be confusing sometimes for folks, especially folks who have never taken those things before. And so I really try to make it a point to not only explain in depth about the larger transportation system, but then also what's available to folks. If the adult pass is more beneficial for you, then let's do that. But if you meet criteria to be an honored citizen card holder, then let's do that first, right? Because that's in the long run going to be more beneficial for you. Let's say you have, maybe some socialized anxieties that make, public transportation not good for you, or something you're not interested in. Then let's find you either, a small group of people you can carpool with. Let's get you a bike, maybe. So things of that nature, even to the point where if you're interested in getting, your license reinstated or anything like that, we can help you do that. We can lead you to where you need to be to get that done, because it's about you and what you need, right? You're doing a job for us essentially, but we're here working for you. So that's, a little bit about that. And I saw there was, I think, another one. Quickly, so how you become an employee at Relay Resources is you just go to our website. You go to our website, you can review a lot about us, everything from our history to some blogs of some really awesome employees, all the way down to apply for our various different social enterprises. So that's step one. But, if you're maybe having trouble at navigating those things, or you want to know more about what transportation benefits we have prior to even applying, we have a number. Goes to me. Just going to say that right now, comes to me, and I can review, Relay Resources employment with you, see if this is a good fit for you to apply, and then what transportation resources you might need at that time, so that when you do come down to Kat's team, I've already met you, I've talked to you. That means you're going to get another follow-up with me, and we can start developing those plans for transportation.
That's fabulous. We do have some questions in the box, in the Q&A box, that I want to respond to. I think one of them was the Get Their Oregon website for Southwest Washington, and I'll answer that really quickly. Actually, I think I put it into our internal chat box, and hopefully we'll get that to you soon. Oh, now I'm in the dark. So, excuse me for a second. So Get Their Oregon, it has a Southwest Washington, Get Their Oregon, Southwest Washington link, and we'll send that out to folks. And yes, and Relay Resources is a nonprofit organization that offers staffing. Maybe you can expand a little bit about, Kat, about the organization and how you work with their other employers, right? So your employees are generally contractors.
Yes, that's very true. Yes. So it's a common misconception that we're a staffing agency. And I think that that our name kind of leads to that sometimes. So we're working on some stuff in that space. So a new careers website will be launched here rather shortly, which will help, identify who we are, what we do, and how we do it. Because there's a lot of things that we do. But basically, you could consider Relay Resources more of a subcontractor. We are the employer, and we have a variety of different social enterprises that we provide services for. Our largest is our janitorial department. So you may see folks out at PDX wearing shirts just like mine that have the Relay Resources logo on them. They are Relay Resources employees, but they are working out of PDX and providing services to PDX. So when PDX receives their awards for, greatest airport or top 5 airports in the United States, we celebrate that here too, because we've definitely provided the services that help them attain those types of certifications and awards. Janitorial is not our only social enterprise that we provide services for. We also have a large group of folks here on our main campus on 148th and Airport Way that do data imaging. So folks that are sitting here, they're more or less sedentary if they need to be. Providing a service to ODHS or OSP, which is really awesome. We have a contract with them to provide these levels of services. So, and many of those folks are the folks that take advantage of our TriMet program most frequently.
Thank you. We've had some questions about onboarding, doing the employee onboarding. And we know Chitamio does a fabulous job at that. Now, Aurora, I'm going to turn it to you because you have, it seems like, many hats. So how do you, how much time do you spend with the transportation component of onboarding, or do you find that it's fairly simple, or you have resources available to tell people about how to get around?
Well, I feel like I've really streamlined that process. It's pretty simple, and the information is coming to them at multiple levels through multiple interactions in the onboarding process. We have that information in our job ads when we're recruiting, and I make sure that the information is discussed with them by the department managers when they're doing the initial interviews. And then when we've decided to make a hire, I have an entire employee benefits packet that I give to them either by email, PDF, or by print if they need that, so that they can look at all of our benefits, and our transportation benefits are included in that packet, as well as having a conversation with them. For example, we just hired 2 new people, and one of them started today and one of them started earlier this week. And while someone else was talking, I just took that little moment to send a text message to those 2 department managers, reminding them to talk with their employees to find out if they needed hop cards.
Fabulous. Placing transit right in the hands of the employee right away is a great way to help them make that choice, or alleviate an issue if they were concerned about how they were going to get to work.
Exactly.
Usually you get so excited. Yeah, it's really exciting. You get past the interview process where you were really nervous, and somebody offers you a job and makes you think like, ooh, how do I get to work?
And we just really want to make that as easy and convenient as possible. We want to remove as many obstacles between great employees and our facility as quickly and efficiently as we can.
Thank you. Chitamio, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about helping people carpool. And I don't know if this is always something that's possible to do, given that you work with so many different work sites. But are you able to do carpooling for some of your work sites? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I will note that we as the employer do not provide a carpool or van pooling service. I think it's important to just be transparent about that. But what we do is encourage folks that are going to the same site, maybe in the same shift, to carpool together. Of course, we're dealing in various different, areas. So, from one site may not work for the next site, and even that shift may not work for that same shift or a different shift at that same site. So we really leave that up to the employers. Now, or the employees, individually, because they know themselves better. They know the connections and the rapports that they have with the people that they work with a lot more than, say, Jay that's sitting at the main campus. And so we really want to make sure that they have that consent to do that on their own. Now, I will say, though, when it comes for things like C-Tran, ride connection, things like that, we totally offer those or push, those as much as possible as well, especially for individuals that are maybe in an area where TriMet doesn't service at all hours of the day, or, I know that some people live past just that marker in C-Tran, where maybe they won't be able to get across the bridge to work in Portland. And so I think, I think C-Tran's got a fantastic van pool service. And I know that, I've sent many individuals to Ride Connection or Ride Share So yeah, I will say too, this is I think more isolated, but there are, one-off situations that occur sometimes. Somebody who, um, I don't know, has maybe lost something during their workday and is now stuck on their permanent site at midnight, or, something to that effect. With certain circumstances and certain situations, Relay wants to make sure that you even have that option to get home safely. And so at times, in emergency situations, we've even provided a taxi for employees to make sure that they get home safely, especially knowing that we're contracted to work in downtown Portland areas, and certain times during nights, it can be rather unsafe for folks. And so we just really want to make sure that all of our employees can get to work safely and can get home at the end of the day safely, because that's the most important thing. So yeah, as far as van pooling or carpooling, I really try to find those options that are already available through partner organizations or organizations in Portland and or Vancouver, sometimes Seattle, and then loop those in with our employees rather than provide that directly as an employer. I also will note though that we have a training program that keeps our employees down at our main campus until about 9 or so. And sometimes, getting to the max to connect to that next service can be very difficult. And so a lot of the times our trainers are kind of corralling employees at the end of the night and taking them to the closest max station so that they have a little bit of a quicker turnaround to get to where they need to go, and make those last connections before the bus service stops running.
Okay, that's great. There was a question about carpool, van pool, van share. You touched on that C-Tran does offer van pools, and they do, which is fabulous. And then people can organize their own van pool as well. There's a provider, and there's a way to connect with others when people are looking for a ride and they want to post their trip. They can do that through getthereoregon.org. So we'll also provide the Get There link at the end of the session. So if anyone has more questions about that. Aurora, I want to take advantage of your time with us today and talk a little. You mentioned a lot of different free things that you do, which is the bike parking. You have bike parking inside as well as outside, which is super fabulous. How much space do you have to provide for bike parking? I know bikes can be compact, or it depends on how much space you have, but do you have allotted space? What did you have to give up to provide that bike parking?
We are really fortunate that our building, being that we're a hotel and then there's also restaurant and bar space, we have a full basement. So we have actually quite a lot of space. We have lockers as well. I forgot to mention that. So we have showers, we have employee lockers, we have, I think we have like 10 bike, the rack things, the bars that are outside on the street that aren't really ours. They're provided by the city, but they're there right outside the door. And then in the basement, we also have pretty much unlimited bike space. I think that if all 25 of our employees were bringing in bikes, then we might have a little bit of an issue. But at this point, I think we have like 4 or 5 people who are using their bikes. And then we have 2 people using electric scooters that they own. And they definitely bring theirs inside because of security. I would not want to leave something that expensive out on the sidewalk either. So having those available, and then having the one of the other things that we provide, and this is not so much a transportation benefit per se, but because some of our shifts can be in the late night, we have night audit. We have people who start really late, we have people who start really early, and sometimes our managers will end up covering a shift or working an extra long day. So we also have the option for, if an employee needs to stay here overnight because of the timing of their shift, we will allow them to stay in a guest room that's not occupied, so that they can stay overnight and have a place to sleep or have a place to rest until the bus services start again, because there is that kind of gap in the night when there's no buses running or no Max running. And we are downtown, so we want our people to be safe. We don't want them having to wait if their shift ends at 3 a.m. We just let them go upstairs and take a nap until the buses start up again.
Well, that is really interesting.
I don't think every employer has that option, but you know, maybe more have an option for like kind of a space where there can be like a cot or a, a couch or something that people can rest on if they have that kind of unusual schedule.
Well, you've each touched on some of the like the free ways or low cost ways of making transportation something that we don't really have to be too worried about, but that there, you know, you've found so many different options for people, and people have brought their own options, like the e-scooters, having their own private e-scooter, which is kind of cool. I think that having the e-scooters, the private providers, sort of set the stage for people to think about, oh, I can do this, and then they see one on Amazon or wherever their local provider, and then they find one that they really like, and then they just start using that as their transportation. Do you have an ability for people, like what happens if the e-scooter runs out of power? Are people able to charge their e-scooter at work?
We do have the ability for them to charge here at work for their personal ones. Obviously, the ones that are privately owned, we don't have that option. However, so far it's only happened once where one of our employees had an issue with his e-scooter. And it wasn't so much that it ran out of power, it was that there was a mechanical issue with it. And he just reached out to us and let us know what was happening. And one of our maintenance team who drives his truck in because he's maintenance and he has to have a truck. There's a couple of employees that have to drive in every day because they use their cars for picking up and delivering and transporting things that we need for the facility. But he was able to go and pick him up and help him and bring him in so that he could, you know, deal with it. And then he was able to reach out to the manufacturer about the mechanical issue. We just make sure that our people aren't stuck. And for example, for myself right now, I take transit. I take the bus every day because I love getting my steps. However, I tore a ligament in my knee a couple of weeks ago. And so I haven't been able to walk much or take transit. So they've allowed me to work from home most days. I'm just coming into the office one day a week while I'm healing, and they're covering my Lyft rides on those days so that I can come in on those days without having to, you know, aggravate the torn ligament while I'm healing. And as soon as I'm healed up, I'll be right back on the bus.
Yes, well, we're all knocking on wood that you heal up super fast.
Thank you.
Jatamio mentioned an emergency ride home program, and TriMet does offer an emergency ride home program as an incentive for employers who subsidize transit passes for employees. So if employers offer a minimum subsidy to any employee of at least $10 per month per employee, then TriMet will provide it's a very small amount of CAB vouchers, but we have that available for employers. So Aurora, you might have to dig through your files for your CAB vouchers, or you can contact me. And my contact information will be at the end. Yeah, it's just a small set, but it helps to have them in the drawer for those instances like Jatamio mentioned. If somebody has to work overtime, or let's say the school calls and a child needs to be picked up because they got sick, then an employee, if they're, for example, on a rush hour bus only, then they might actually need the CAB voucher to go pick up their child. So we have that available for employees. But if employers can also offer their own type of emergency ride home program just by creating a policy that they'll offer that ride home if they want to. So that's something that is a financial incentive, but it can help people make the trip to work and then not worry so much if something happens. I think we're about done. Let me make sure that we haven't skipped any of the questions. Okay, and Jatamio is responding to a question, so it looks like we're pretty good on that. I think we can go to the next slide, or I'm sorry. There are some questions that we received ahead of time. I'll start with Aurora. Of the transportation benefits that you offer, which one has provided, would you say, the biggest bang for your buck?
I would definitely say that the monthly hop cards have provided the biggest bang for our buck. We do a 50-50 subsidy, and we have a good number of our employees who are taking advantage of that, and it's just so easy and convenient for them. They never have to think about it. I reload them every month pretty much as soon as the next month's becomes available. And then their 50% comes out in two $25 deductions out of their paycheck. So it just takes all of that concern off of their shoulders. And because it's a monthly hop card for them, they can use it for anything. They're not just using it to get to work. They're using it to go where they want to go on the weekend. They're using it for their grocery shopping trips. And when we think about providing transportation for work, realizing that it's so much more than that. It's really their ability to get anywhere they need to go, anytime they want to go somewhere within, the Portland metro area, and by a variety of different methods as well. So I would say that has been the most bang for our buck. And then the second one would be the bikes and the lockers and showers availability for those who want that option. We also have people who kind of do a mix where they have their hop card pass and they also have their bike. And so they bike when the weather's nice. But they have the option of taking the bus or the MAX when the weather's not nice, which is a good thing in Portland.
Perfect. Kat, I'm going to pose the same question to you. Which of the transportation benefits, resources that you offer provide the biggest bang for your buck?
I would defer this question more to Jay, but if my opinion is necessary, I would definitely say that our hop cards are a great value to our employees.
Yeah, so similar to kind of what Aurora was talking about, an employee has the option to, use an honored citizen hop card or an adult TriMet pass, or, utilize those things for Lyft, or we can search, the Lyft resources as well. We, for our honored citizen, I load them monthly, similar to what Aurora was describing. So that they never have to worry about it. The only time they want to discontinue that, they just give me a call, and that's pretty much done. As far as our adult passes, once we sign up folks, our rate right now is about like a little under $400 for the whole year. And of course, that's prorated by the month that you sign up. And so our employees, once you've signed up for the program, we only charge them $16.64 out of every paycheck until that total amount is paid up. So, you think about how much you would be paying every day opposed to having $16.64 out of a paycheck. That's a huge, huge financial benefit for folks. So I would say that the availability to be so flexible with adding funds to people's honored citizen cards and I will even go as far as to say we have temporary loadable day passes that we can put on folks' cards too. So for instance, if you've ordered a hop card, I have to wait 7 or 10 days for that to arrive in the mail. But we can also give you, a week worth of hop funds on that temporary card, and then just charge you later in a paycheck, or split that in a paycheck so that it's not such a financial burden on you. So I think between all of those options, as far as having kind of like your transportation concierge, which is what I would call myself sometimes, that's been a huge benefit for folks. Huge, huge, huge. I think even to the point of advocacy, I think that there was a situation where somebody's TriMet funds weren't being read or correctly on their card. So I had to call TriMet and verify that, yes, this person does have that. And they were able to avoid a $90 fee because of that, just that little snafu that would have caused them a lot of financial hardship. So things like that, where I feel like we can step into that advocacy role too. That's also a dual benefit of our transportation. We kind of do and don't have showers. we have them on our main campus, so that means that they're not accessible to, unfortunately, to the whole of our employee base. But if folks needed to come down during business hours, you're more than welcome to use the lockers and or showers here. We also have bike storage, not covered, but we also have some bike storage inside in our warehouse. as well as, outside bike storage on our main campus outside as well. So
Convenient bike storage is wonderful.
it's huge, huge.
Thank you. We do have a canned question about, I'm sorry, we have a question about, we wanted to talk about tax benefits. And the tax laws were changed where employers used to be able to subsidize, this is nationwide. So employers used to be able to deduct the subsidy, but they're no longer able to do that. But with pre-tax, that does offer a little bit of a break in taxes, I believe. So Aurora, I'm going to ask you a little bit about how much of a tax benefit do you think that is? Is the tax benefit more for the employer, or do you think it's a bigger advantage for the employee?
Well, I would say that at this hotel, we don't currently offer the pre-tax deduction because setting up that kind of a program there's some administrative costs to us that would offset that. So instead of setting that up, we went with the 50% subsidy. Other places where I've worked where we have had that flexible spending account for transportation, I found that for me personally, it was a little bit of a benefit, but not a lot of a benefit, both for the employee and the employer. I would love to see our government be more generous with that. I'd love to see them be more generous with flexible spending account tax benefits than they are being. I think that for companies that are larger, it makes a lot of sense. If you're a really large employer with a lot of employees who are taking advantage of it, then it really adds up. But for a small business with fewer than 30 employees, it's a smaller payoff, and the administrative costs of that kind of an account can be off-putting.
Okay, that's really important to know. So employers should check with their benefits or payroll provider first to find out what the benefit or disadvantage might be, or cost.
Right.
And cost is the disadvantage. Thank you. So let's see. Aurora, I'll just ask you really briefly, because I know you have many hats. We talked a little bit about how much time you might put into managing the commute benefits. I know there's the HOP account that you have to manage every month. Now, Relay Resources has an annual program, so they have a little bit different kind of management situation. Is it doable with 30 employees to manage a HOP account for multi-passes?
It literally takes me less than 10 minutes a month.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
just once a month,
perfect.
I sign in, I make sure, that if there's any changes of employment, for example, if we have an employee who's resigned and I'm ending their card, or if we have a new employee, I'm setting up. But even with those things, it's so fast. It is so easy to load the cards. It's less than 10 minutes of my month. And then I get the invoice by email. I put it in our AP system. I mail the check. It's almost completely automated.
Oh, terrific. That's good. I'm breathing a sigh of relief.
Yeah, it's so easy.
Well, with that, I'm going to start wrapping it up. I really appreciate all of you, all the information you've provided. I'm going to point people to the employer resources at gettherEoregon.org. We have the link that you can copy in the chat box. We can go to the next slide. I think there's the next slide. Yes. And we have an email alias. I'm part of a small team. We're federally funded for the Federal Transit Administration, and so it's employerprograms@TriMet.org. One of us will respond to you. If employers have any questions about the types of programs or any questions for you, I will pass those along. And then we have another slide, I think. Yes, and we have another webinar which we will talk about options for traveling at off-peak hours and using van pool and carpool programs to do that. Also, you'll be able to register at the same link you used to register for this webinar at gettherEoregon.org webinars. And Aurora, I want to thank you and the Ace Hotel. Thank you so much for your time today.
It was my pleasure to be here, and thank you for all that you're doing to make commuting in Portland more accessible.
Thank you. And thank you, Kat, so much for your time, taking your time from Relay Resources to help us out today.
Thank you, Adriana. I'm so glad that Jay and I were able to be here today. Thank you for the services that you're providing to our community.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay, also with Relay Resources for coming today and for making time to help out all the different employees that you help.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here to help the community for sure. So I appreciate this opportunity to be able to express some of those things and then just share my appreciation to everyone on this call. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of this.
Thanks, everybody. Also, the replay of this webinar will be available at the getthereoregon.org website. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon and lunch.